Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the Adventure Media Podcast. This is our third episode. We are still very much learning. But I am Trent.
I am Christian.
And this is our first time doing this remotely from one another, so bear with us. But we're going to try and do something kind of cool this week. We're going to talk a little bit about like some of the logistics that go in kind of behind the scenes of Ultimate Adventure. And so
Unreal Adventure.
Unreal Adventure. See, we're both going to have to get better about that.
25 years of habit is hard to break.
Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to peel back the curtain just a little bit, talk a little bit about the logistics, and then maybe get into some of the vehicle requirements, and then also what Christian and I have in our stables. We've, as longtime magazine people, we have a rather lengthy stable of vehicles, both current and past. We're only going to get into the current ones, I think, this week. But
we'll get into the past ones later on. I think we've both got some really good stories to tell with our respective history of vehicles.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit, Christian, about what it takes to put something like this on. I mean, what kind of behind the scenes stuff are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, I mean, not just what it takes to put it on, but to put it on with a high degree of professionalism, or at least attempt to do it with a high degree of professionalism. And that means, you don't want everyone to get to the first hotel that you had arranged to us all to stay at, and like, oh, they don't have that reservation on the books, or oh, and by the way, the bridge is washed out, and so we can't go down that road this trip. And that's always been the joke when planning this event, like why we do so many pre-runs. It's like, what if the bridge is out? And that was something started by our predecessor, Rick Payway. But in addition to all the just normal logistics, like getting everyone's email, there's about 50 to 60 people who actually hit the ground on Ultimate Adventure. Or here I go again. There's 50 or 60 people who actually hit the ground on Unreal Adventure. Yes. I'm thinking in the past when I was doing that other one. And so, just building the email chain that I send out to everyone, welcoming them, and then there's all the logistical people behind the scenes, whether in office or insurance or legal or who knows what. Nowadays, that's a little more streamlined since it's just Trent and myself running the show. But
sure.
there are many plates to keep spinning, and then you have things like, oh, we need to pull film permits and worry about insurance requirements and so on and so forth. The list is seemingly endless, but honestly, once you've done it for a couple of years, it almost becomes like it's a template in your head, and then it's just like, okay, I've got to check this box, and then next I check that box. So it does become easier, and we always call this a labor of love, and it is something you actually grow to love to do. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I usually handle the more nuts and bolts, technical, clerical stuff behind the scenes, the less fun stuff. And then Trent has been doing the pre-runs and planning the route and doing all the fun stuff, which actually is a lot of work, but you are out in the field doing all sorts of crazy cool stuff.
Yeah,
not once,
sure.
but how many times? Like usually Trent and I will kind of come to a consensus. We haven't been here in a while. This would be good for this reason. This year, it's looking like these are the kind of vehicles we might get. So this area might be better skewed towards the group than this one. So we'll come up with a geographic location where we want to hold this event. And then
call it a region. So
yeah. We'll draw a big loose circle around the map. And then Trent will go out there and work his magic. And it starts at home doing research, though, doesn't it, Trent?
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. So, Christian is in a lot of ways like the glue that holds this event together. He often refers to himself as the wizard behind the curtain, so to speak. But he and I have a very complementary skill set, I think, where Christian, we're both pretty good logistics people. Don't get me wrong, but Christian is very much nuts and bolts. Interfacing with sponsors, interfacing with readers, keeping the wheels on the tracks, so to speak. I, on the other hand, I get to do, in some ways it's the fun stuff. In some ways it's quite a bit more challenging. Once we draw that big circle on the map, I have to then figure out how to make an event happen out of that. And so it sounds pretty easy, but when you've been doing this for 25 years now, dirty little secret, we usually have visited that region of the country before. And one of the tenets of Unreal Adventure is that we don't go to the same place twice. We've only ever done that once, and that was on the Rubicon. If you're going to go one place twice, it might as well be the grandfather of all the off-road trails, right? So from there, I'll typically reach out to. So, all right, we'll back up a little bit. I usually do at minimum 2 pre-runs, sometimes a partial of 3. And what I will do, the first one in it, that seems like, why can't you just figure out all at once? Well, the problem is, number one, geographic location. If I am physically much further away from where we're going to be doing the event that particular year, I'm not that familiar with that area. And so I have to do a bunch of research, like Christian said, in advance, and just look around online, look at YouTube videos, do internet searches. We've been fortunate to where we've been doing this for so long now that I am often able to, let's just say, identify key people within that region that I trust to make discreet inquiries, and they can keep it quiet. And so, because honestly, those guys are going to know their area much better than I do. And so I will do that, and I will make those discreet inquiries. But the first pre-run is really more about figuring out, and this sounds weird, figuring out where you don't want to go as opposed to where you do. And so there might be some off-road park that pops up on the radar, in Texas or Mississippi or Kentucky or something like that. That's like, this looks great. And this happened to me 2 years ago. I went there, and there was a major TV show that was filmed there. It was easily the most disappointing off-road park I'd ever seen in my life. It was pretty much a side-by-side park. It was miserable. There wasn't 200 feet of elevation change on the entire property. Don't get me wrong. It was beautiful, and it was great if you were into mud and you were in a side-by-side. But if you were in a full-size truck, forget about it. And so that's the kind of stuff that I have to figure out when it's boots on the ground time. And I'll put anywhere from, I've done 18 to 2,500 miles in 7 days. It's pretty gnarly.
You'll often start at the ending. Not often, but sometimes, say, for example, I know years you've started at the ending, ran it halfway one way, and then, for example, had to bail, flew somewhere else for some other responsibility, came back from the other end, kind of linked them up in the middle, and then started back and ran it the whole way to make sure it was smooth. Oh, we have this problem, and then basically you have to hit the reset button and start all over again. So
yeah, and I've had I want to say 3 times now I've had to reverse the trip. Like, we're midway through the planning, and we're gonna go, all right, so I'm gonna start here, I'm gonna end here. and then all of a sudden something comes up. It's been like a special event at one end or the other that it's like, oh boy, what are we going to
So
do?
two years ago, it was that we couldn't get the hotel blocks because there was some music festival in Muscle Shoals.
That's right. And there were literally no hotel rooms to be had.
Yeah.
And
so we had to reverse it.
Yeah. And then I think last year's I had to reverse as well because
last year we had, if you remember, last year we changed the starting location 3 or 4 times and adjusted the route 3 or 4 times. Last year was one of the more challenging years, but it was also it's also one of the most technically challenging. We had some legit trails, just great scenery, good days, good mix of off-road and road days. Like I think both Trent and I have tried to skew this thing away from the older template, which was a dedicated road day where you were just doing nothing but pounding pavement all day long, going out of your skull. And then the next day was, a crazy hardcore trail. So we try to infuse a good bit of legit off-roading into every day where possible.
Oh, for sure. And one of my goals in all of this is to do dirt every day. Not just because we love Fred and Dave, but also that's part of the road trip is that if we can do some dirt every single day, then even if we are throwing down 400, 500, sometimes 600 miles in a day, at least there's a chance to get the tires dirty and things like that. And that's one of the basic tenets that I've really kind of tried to carry into the current generation or the basic tenets that I've tried to withhold to for planning these things. So so like I said, I will do these initial pre-runs or this initial pre-run if it's logistically geographically very far away from me. That's a very packed, usually 7 to 8 day trip. I will then come back and I'll make a bunch of notes, and what I will do during that time too, because the on-road days for me logistically are just as hard as the off-road days, in some ways harder, because you don't want to just be pounded down the interstate, right? You don't want to just be we're gonna run I-40 for 250 miles. No, we try not to do that. We at least try and make it a little bit more interesting than that. And so trying to create that where it's not too far out of the way, but we're actually making some time and things like that. And then from there, I will come back. I usually always confer with Christian. We'll compare notes. He'll usually have some suggestions and things like that. And then I will do a second pre-run. And the second pre-run is usually the most critical. And that, as Christian said, I will usually start at the end and then run all the way to the beginning and then run back to the end again. Why would I do that? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, usually there's some question marks especially on some of these secondary roads in terms of, do we go this way or do we go this way? And which way is cooler, or which has more scenery, which has more opportunity to do something cool. And so that's where I really hardcore put down the route. Also that's the point where I'm marking things like gas stations, stores, grocery stores, things like that. Finalizing the camping sites, figuring out where ideally we want a hotel, which rarely seems like lately has been the case, where, I'm like, Christian, this is the one I want, make it happen. And it's not the case for whatever reason or another. And but
it all does seem to come together because, after 7 days and, 1,000 to 1,400 miles, when you have 25, 26, 27, I think the highest number we ever had was 28, maybe vehicles or thereabouts. When you have that many vehicles going down the road, and you blow a turn or you miss a turn and you've got to like reroute everybody, it is a major logistical nightmare. And so that's, we might have to do that once a trip, maybe, or very minorly, like, oh, I blew a turn. We're just
Yeah.
gonna,
It
everyone stop
happens.
back there. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, it's a rarity, and given
For
how
sure.
much ground we actually travel. So that's all doing to Trent's, nose to the grindstone pre-running style. And also the other element we don't really talk too much about is working with our production company, Ryan Foss Productions.
For sure.
Many meetings with Ryan, Trent, Ryan, I, and usually other members of the film crew who, okay, here's where there's going to be a good shot here. We have to anticipate where they go up ahead to get those shots, and that's all in Trent's brain. So it
Yeah.
all kind of comes together to make hopefully some of the best videos you'll be watching on an event like this. Because sadly, prior to Unreal Adventure, a lot of that great stuff wound up on the cutting room floor, never to
Yeah.
be seen
And
again. So
that was a number one, I think, on Christian and I's list to correct, is that there was so much good stuff. I mean, it's 7 days of action in one shape or form or another. And so much, and they were all consolidated down into 15-minute videos or something like that. It was really
yeah,
terrible. And so that's something we are seeking to correct. So, and we're hoping, and well, we know that I think the response is going to be great with that. So, so yeah, that's basically the logistics in terms of like what tools I'm using. Again, depending on the geographical location, I will sometimes use my own vehicle. Sometimes I will, believe it or not, don't tell the rental cars this, but I will I will fly in and rent a car. Usually try and get either a Wrangler or a Tacoma. Those are pretty popular rental vehicles these days. They're kind of expensive, but they're worth it. And the my rote sort of excuse when they come back absolutely filthy. I haven't really managed to damage one very hard yet, but hopefully that remains. But is that I'm working on a construction site and I'm using this for work, and so I need this 4x4 for work because it's come up where I land and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. McGee, we don't have your Jeep Wrangler available, but I can offer you this nice Civic. And I'm like, no, I'm going to a remote construction site. I'm there for work, and I need to do this for work. And but yeah, don't the like I said, I am a walking, talking reason why you never, ever, ever, ever want to buy a rental car. but but yeah,
but those years you are able to kind of do it incognito and keep that element of surprise, because when you see that rig behind you heading somewhere, the game's up.
yeah, for sure. So it's been a labor, like Christian said. I mean, this is all of this is a labor of love, and so it's been a lot of fun. Honestly, in some ways, for me personally, I actually have a little bit more fun during the pre-run than I do during the actual event, just because during the event I am so focused on getting us to the next destination, getting us to the next cool thing, trying to keep us on schedule, trying to keep us getting on schedule to where we're not getting into camp at midnight, that kind of thing. So during the actual running is very stressful for me. And so sometimes, honestly, the pre-running is maybe a little bit more fun personally. What about you, Christian?
Um, I enjoy all of it, but as one of the people running the event along with you, you do have that weight of responsibility on your shoulders during the whole event. So for me, I love check-in day. I love watching everyone come in and get to know everyone else, and those people who are alumni come in and do the bro hugs and see everyone and catch up, and then it's game time and you're focused. And then I don't stop until the last day, the victory dinner, after we get up and I close. Okay, that's a wrap for this year. Here's a um, then it's like a huge weight off my chest, and that's when
Oh
I
yeah.
kind of relax, and then I start reflecting on what it is we have just done for that whole week. Because during the week, I'm not thinking about anything but like the next element that's coming up, and the next, making sure this problem never materializes. And oh yeah, I forgot that's out in the horizon. We've got to deal with this, and this is coming, and this needs to happen next. And just, and then also, and it's designed that way and intentionally, but like everything on this event flows through me and you as the
Hmm.
people running it. And so
Sure.
you're just apprised of every little and that's our job, running it,
Yeah.
to make sure things, we know where all the pieces of the puzzle need to fit together. And so if there's one that's going to be missing, we need to know about it. But yeah, that last night, and then it's just like, whoa, this was really cool, and then you start thinking about it and reliving it. And so yeah, I'm not really in the moment a lot during the event, but as soon as it's over, it all kind of hits me and washes over me. And that buzz lasts for a good long while.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are so many moving elements to this event. I mean, we call it herding cats, and in some way, there's a lot of truth to that. There's just so many moving parts. You've got 50 plus people in 25 plus vehicles, uh, all have different needs, problems, of which you're trying to find solutions. There have
Film
been times,
crew, you have to speak
yeah,
on camera. We have to remember, like, the checklist of the content we need to create out of this thing. And then
exactly.
there's all the logistics that we've got to call that guy, prior to our arrival. Let's let them so there's always 10 things going on. But
Oh,
it
for
is,
sure.
it's like a adrenaline high that lasts for 7-8 days.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and things like, oh well, Sam had to drop out with this reader, 30 miles back. Where's he at? We're at a gas stop. Is he going to be able to catch up? Do we need to
So you
let
have
him
the
know we're
route,
home next?
yeah.
Does he have the route? Things like that. So,
Or
um,
we need
that's,
we need a 538 ring and pinion for a 14 bolt.
yes,
Who do we know
yes,
who can get us one
yes,
in the next stop?
yes,
Oh, have
yes,
him
yes,
call him, and then his
exactly.
mom's gonna run it up from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of that has happened. All of
Oh
that has
yeah.
happened.
Oh yeah.
We've had, I have, I have stolen, not stolen, I have borrowed ring and pinions from shops that happen to have that same ring and pinion in stock for a project vehicle, but that project vehicle is like 3 months out. So I can replace it, but they have it right then and there. I mean, all of that has happened. And Christian, can you think of a single component on a vehicle that has not been changed in the course of a UA?
Hmm. Maybe like something stupid like a seat.
Probably, but I'm
you know
talking
but no,
engines.
I remember motor swaps. I remember transmission
Oh
swaps,
yeah.
certainly transfer cases, and
Oh yeah.
axle housings getting welded back together, frames getting welded back together, you name it. We've even had, like, I remember when one of our participants rolled, we had a windshield frame delivered so they could keep driving. And
Hmm.
it's, yeah, just
I
about
remember.
everything.
I remember there was one UA. It was quite a while ago now, but I think the parking lot ring and pinion swap stood at 8 that year.
I don't doubt it.
So every single night, pretty crazy. So yeah. So yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's so the other tools that I will use. I uh, I use Onyx off road quite a bit. Excuse me. I use Onyx off road quite a bit. In recent years, I have used other programs. Onyx is pretty darn good overall. That's where I will do my route planning and sharing. That app has gotten progressively better over the years. I think maybe in part due to our feedback. I mean, talk to they're not a current UA sponsor, but it's worth mentioning. So go ahead, Christian.
Oh yeah, just I I'm not the most technologically savvy person. I'm very analog, and so if I can use it and deal with something, it's pretty good. So, it is nice to be able to download the route and share it honestly afterwards. Like, hey, where did you guys go in 2021? Oh, yeah, here, just take this, go do all of it or as much of it as you want, or here's where that trail was and the elevation and everything else. It's all in there. So it is a nice tool.
Yeah, and we hope to bring them back on board at some point, but it's still it's a great tool. It's got progressively better. Their relatively new route builder has been very valuable to me. I'm something of an advanced user, and so they've actually sought out my feedback and they've improved a lot of things. And what I love about them is that they get progressively better, and so they're listening, and I like that about them. So
yeah,
but I have used
any company who will listen to end user feedback is worthwhile,
for sure. And I've also used Gaia in the past, and Motion X Pro before that. In my very early planning stages, I would use Motion X Pro. I think Payway back in the day it was like triptychs.
Oh yeah, dropping waypoints. Oh yeah. The actual hard work. Yeah,
We would have maps.
You have 1 year where all the maps got wet.
Yeah,
It got ruined. So then you really got to fall back on your Cub Scout pioneering.
exactly. So I've tried to drag us a little bit kicking and screaming back into the modern age, but
yeah.
So anyway, that's a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go. Yeah, let's transition on to we in addition to talking UA logistics and everything, we were gonna talk about some of our vehicles. We run these big, crazy UA builds every year, like the Scout behind Trent, like my UA CJ60. All these really crazy built vehicles that are fully capable, can do this stuff, are designed to do this stuff. But as Trent said at the beginning of this, we also have a pretty good stable of just normal vehicles. And we were kind of talking on the phone the other day. And it's like, oh, what are you going to do with that? What's your plans with this? And hey, you still have that. And so we just figured we'd go over our current stable of 4x4s and just kind of talk about them, give you a little bit of the inside scoop on them, how we got them, what we've done with them, our lives with them, and just maybe some anecdotes or two, and then future plans.
Yeah. So, with when you're this close to off-roading, as I think Christian and I and many of you guys are as well, one vehicle doesn't suit all. I mean, the ultimate adventure vehicles are pretty cool, and we've developed a pretty cool formula for them, thanks in large part to guys like Vern Simons, who's built several of them now. He kind of has it down to a science. He built,
and they're bulletproof out the gate.
Oh yeah,
Vernco Fab.
Vernco Fab, verncofab.com, I believe. And but he built the vast majority of the Scout behind me. I mean, yeah, I wired it. I helped a lot or whatever, but all the fabrication was all on him. All the cool factor was all on him. I would say that I more or less, made it run and drive reliably or whatever, but all the suspension design and everything was all him. And so he's done a fantastic job for the past several years. I mean, he built not only the Scout behind me, he built the Range Rover. He built the CJ6D, which we'll talk about here in just a second. He built the Tundra.
The UA LRJ.
The UA LRJ, that thing is an anvil. Yeah, and
they all are.
and
My
honestly,
yeah,
yeah, honestly,
he's.
all of them. Go ahead, Christian.
Oh, I was just gonna say the guy's super talented. He's super, very highly intelligent, um, and incredibly creative. And so he's one of those rare individuals where it all comes together. And he's really just a vehicular mad scientist. I mean, really, it's just like you just wind him up, point him in a direction, and just don't get in his way, because what
Yeah,
he's going to
just
do
stay out
by
of the way.
himself is going to be magic. I've always said, normal people, your average normal person will see like four is the sum of 2 plus 2, and Vern just looks at it a completely different way. He comes to that number, just he gets to the same place, but in a way that most of us would never dream of going. And so yeah, he's really raised the bar, and I think kind of pushed the envelope and set a new standard for, not only durable, capable off-road vehicles, but ones that have unique styling and just a personality and a character that are going to outlive their owners. I mean, I imagine, we are just the custodians and the caretakers of these things that Vern has built for this thing we do, and they'll probably be in a museum someday in 100 years from now.
With any luck. But the other cool part is like the Scout behind me. There have not been really any wholesale changes that have been made to this car. Maintenance stuff, sure, that happens. I mean, I use this. It has close to 15,000 miles on it now, and those are hard miles. And other than maintenance, it really hasn't been. There haven't been any big changes. And I can say, I mean, Christian, what about the CJ6D?
No, just dumb stuff that I've done. Like last year on UA, I backed into a big rock and didn't realize I was on the coilover, and so I thought I was just pushing it with the bumper, but no, it was a shock, and so I bent the coilover. That's on me. Um, yeah, I've not done anything to
Yeah,
that Jeep, and I've used it on two UAs. I drive it everywhere. I don't trailer it. It's been to Moab countless times, a bunch of trails in the southwest
yeah,
and southeast. But yeah, it's the perfect vehicle.
yeah. Well, and his Range Rover, that thing. I believe it or not, guys, I actually drove that car all the way to Alaska from Phoenix, Arizona. So, that I think it's 6 or 7 thousand miles or something like that. I drove it up there. I pre-ran in it. I left it there with some friends. Flew home, and then he and I we finished this thing up. Took it up there. It wheeled for a week, wheeled back home or whatever. But how many of you could jump in your rock crawler and drive to Alaska? I mean, that's
Oh,
that's
that
the whole
Range
thing
Rover
we're
was
talking about.
comfortable too. That thing went down the
It
road like
really
a
was.
pillow.
It really did.
Yeah, it was great, and you could do 75, 80 in it,
Oh
no
yeah. Oh,
problem.
totally. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I might have put as many miles on that Range Rover as Vern did, but but yeah, that one has moved on. That's no longer part of the UA stable, but it's actually a very good caretaker these days. It went to the East Coast, and it went to like a Rover specialist, I believe, and that guy actually made it really nice. Like what that car really needed was finishing, and what I mean by that is like the interior. We Vern got kind of down to the wire, and so the interior was very sparse, and the dash area and stuff like that, and it got uglied up. I mean, it was on 3 or 4 UAs, and so that guy, for the last I saw of it on Instagram or something like that, is that it looks legit nice. So it's in good hands for sure. So, well, I mean, with that, let's I guess let's talk. Let's do a quick rundown of the since we were already talking about the UA CJ6D and everything. Why don't you kick things off with that, Christian? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the backstory
Okay.
and stuff like that?
Yeah, I bought that thing. So I had owned a 1971 CJ6, which was a former Border Patrol rig. I live in San Diego, and they were fairly common down here. You would see them pop up on the Auto Trader, if I can date myself, or Craigslist or wherever. And so I had owned one and built it, and had to sell it when my son was young, because that was my daily driver. Missed it, and loved that Jeep. And this one came up for sale literally right over the hill from me. And Trent will scroll through the photos eventually. There's one of it the day I bought it. It was all stock, had the Myers hardtop, and I bought it, and I didn't know what I was going to
Oh,
do with
there it
it.
is.
There it is. That's it was for sale in Valley Center, right over the hill from me, and had the Buick 225 T14 Spicer 18 with an overdrive on it. The 71 CJ6 has the rare 30 spline flanged offset Dana 44 rear. All good stuff. It had a worn 80s Bellevue. It had a Bellevue winch on it. I forget which exact model. So it had all the cool stuff on it. I paid, an absurdly low amount for it. Went and winched it on my trailer. And I think at the time I was the editor of JP Magazine. My wife was in Europe at the time, so she left me by myself, and she came home to yet another rusty Jeep in the driveway. I got it running. I had no real plans for it until I decided to build it up. And so I was going to John Kappa, my buddy, was the editor of Four Wheeler at the time, and Four Wheeler had this event called Top Truck Challenge. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to enter the CJ6. And so what I did was I got a pair of Rockwells, and I stabbed those Rockwells under it. And my plan was to run NDT dualies tires, front and rear, just like you see there. I had dualies. I was going to get 2 or 4 more NDTs on the bud rims, and run dualies in the back as well. I had it running at this point, and I just had to mate the Spicer 18 to the Rockwell drive shafts and rig up some kind of steering system. I was going to go full hydraulic. And then I got to about this point and had my entry to Top Truck Challenge all set to go. And then there was a corporate shakeup, and they fired John Kappa and told me I was now going to be the editor of Four Wheeler magazine, which would have prevented me from participating in the event had I even gotten selected to go. So I dragged that Jeep back onto the trailer. I was borrowing a buddy's bay in the 4 Old Parts where he worked to do those Rockwell installs. Brought it home, and it sat with those Rockwells on my trailer the entire 2.5, 3 years that I was the editor of Four Wheeler, until they came and once again tapped me on the shoulder and moved me from Four Wheeler magazine to editor-in-chief of Four Wheel and Off-Road. They did that in 2016, just a couple of weeks before Ultimate Adventure. So I didn't have time to build anything for UA 2016, but for UA 2017, the plan was to build the CJ into a cool UA build using all of that year's sponsors' products. But what happened was my wife became pregnant with my daughter, and so I had no time to do a vehicle build. And so I kind of made a deal with Vern. I said, hey, buddy, if you build this, because Vern was my tech editor on Four Wheel and Off-Road. So I was his boss. And so I said, I'll make a deal with you. I will take all of your writing assignments off the table, or at least the vast majority of them. Your job for the next 3 months is going to be build this vehicle and take photos. I'll write the stories, and that's not the only thing you'll have on your plate, but that's, the main thing. And so that's what we did. And, it was one of those deals where Vern would send me a photo. Hey, what do you think of this? And I'd say, oh, that's cool, but it would be neat if you could X, Y, or Z. And then 5 minutes, not 5 minutes, but literally 30 minutes later, I get a call, or sorry, a photo texted to me, and like he had done whatever I had said. So the guy's a magician. And that Jeep is just it is so my personality, but it's also like all of Vern's little bits of flair, and that the Jeep means so much to me, because
The
it's
flare, guys, the flare, like this little thing right here, that is a pet rock that was
yeah.
found somewhere in the car, like in a
It was in a
floorboard.
hat channel. It was when he cut the body
Yeah,
apart. There's a big polished river rock in it, probably from
yeah,
going down some wash in the middle of the Salton Sea or who knows where. And Vern decided, oh, it's been that rock's been with this Jeep for this long. I can't leave now. So he
it's
took a
lucky
couple
rock.
yeah, he took a couple straps of body that he had cut off and like made a little cradle to hold it in there, and it's welded right there to the winch mount. And so
Yeah,
yeah, all that sort of stuff. And he
and this,
texted me, hey, the intercooler, we can't get two headlights in here. I'm like, whatever, we'll run one headlight. And then Mike Tarvin, who's another dear friend of ours, he's like, oh, I got an old Perlux light that had looked good on that. And so he brought it by, and like we just chucked it on there the day before, or the day
yeah,
UA started. And so yeah, I mean that Jeep, it's got a Skyjacker coilover short arm suspension. It's slung down low. The suspension slinky. It works bitchin'. That Jeep climbs like no get out. And
mhm.
I'm super happy with it. Yeah, I love it. I drive it
Yeah,
everywhere. It's got a Cummins 2.8 liter in it now. Made it to a Advanced Adapters Ranger Overdrive with an SM420 in it that I bought for like $100 from Mel Wade at Offroad Evolution. Then behind that's a Offroad Design Magnum box with a MP205, and then that's Ultimate Dana 60s with 488s and Eden E-lockers and
yeah,
38-inch Milestar Patagonia MTO2 black labels.
yeah. So I mean, things like he chopped what 2 inches, I think, out of the
I think there's
windshield,
about 3 out of the windshield.
3 out of the
I
windshield.
love the styling of that, but functionally, you have to like
It's
drive.
challenging.
Yeah. You've got to, if you want to see anything past your, above your line of sight, you've got to cradle
Yeah,
your neck down.
and then these little things here are actually like the little warning labels from the R2.8 crate. At the time, R2.8s came in a wooden crate. And so this is like the, fragile, handle with care.
Well, the
This one over here is
floorboards
keep it
of
out of the grain. Yeah,
the floorboards are actually the boards from the axle crates as well.
yeah. And so that's the kind of little kitschy things that we talk about that Vern is so good at. So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a very, very, very cool car. All right. Well, let me get out of this, and then we will, because we were already talking about it. Let's talk a little bit about the Scout that's right behind me. So, Mr. Scout is a 1964 Scout 80, and I didn't have a chance to pull many build photos of it or whatever. But this is it in actually this is 2020, I believe, because this is going to the Sun Road in what is that national park out there that we visited?
Glacier?
Huh? Glacier, yeah, Glacier
Glacier?
National Park. Yeah, Glacier National Park.
That was the one
So
day before the smoke came in and obscured everyone's visibility.
yeah, well, actually, this may have been on the return trip, but anyway, but this is my 64 Scout 80, equipped with a Cummins R2.8, Ultimate Dana 60s front and back with 488s and ARBs. It has a Warn winch on the front. It has a Tremec TR4050, which was a brand new transmission at the time, and and then that is backed by a Magnum 205. So from Offroad Design, the thing has gearing for days. Like low. Honestly, guys, is kind of dumb, but I have used it. Believe it or not, I really have. And it hit, like I said, it has been an anvil. I actually was pre-running in it just a few days ago. Kind of uglied up the transmission cross member, unfortunately. which is going to need some attention. But it everything about this thing, I think Vern got right. I mean, obviously, what he did is he actually cut out the factory wheel arches, cut about 3 to 4 inches out of the fenders and the quarter panels, front and back, and then welded all that stuff back in. And so, and stretched it a little bit, and then also took 3 inches out of the top. But because this was an old tractor, I had bought this thing maybe 2 years prior, maybe 3 before we built it. But I bought it for the patina. I mean, you can't buy patina like that. I'm sorry, guys. You just can't. And so it looked exactly like that. And that was the whole reason I paid what I did. And I got it fairly cheap. And it ran, and I took it out, and it broke almost immediately on me. But it was owned by a kid that was that's actually from this past week. So a little sneak preview, what's in store. And I also use it for some marketing stuff that I do and things like that. But it's, like I said, this thing has been an anvil. It's on 38-inch Falcon MTs, Walker Evans, beadlock wheels, Mastercraft seats. It's
with seat heaters.
With seat heaters, very important.
The last one. Those were so nice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then one of the cool parts, and I think my favorite part to this build, is we kept it simple. It's on leaf springs all the way around, and they're 6-inch 73 to 87 Chevy Skyjacker springs that are mounted spring under. So as a result, there's no axle wrap. It stays crazy planted. Doesn't have quite the travel that you would get out of a 4-link with a coilover or anything like that, but it gets the job done for sure.
But also on travel, like, we've got lockers. You don't really need an RTI ability of 1500. You don't need that much flex. You'll lift the tire.
Exactly.
Hoo-hoo, big deal.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a pretty solid car. I've used it not only for Ultimate Adventure, but I believe this is from I've done a bunch of guiding for Moab trails. Unfortunately, the word's gotten out, I guess, that I'm maybe okay at guiding trail rides and things like that. And so that I've been fortunate enough that some companies like Skyjacker and everything during the Moab Beach Jeep Safari, they've actually asked me to guide their company corporate trail rides for them. And I believe that's what this is here. And I've used it for that. Like I said, it gets driven most everywhere, and it'll do 80. That's Christian and I running down the road in Alaska, actually.
No, that's Texas.
Oh, maybe. Okay. Texas. But
Rachel
anyway,
Spear took that photo.
Yeah. Very talented photographer. But it'll do 80, and it'll crawl with the best of them. So yeah, that's the Scout. Christian, you tell me what you want to talk about.
Oh, just pick a folder and open up the photos. That doesn't matter.
Well,
dealer's
what
choice.
I'm trying to do is delay some time where I can get over here. All right, no big deal. I'm kidding.
Baby podcasters. We're not very.
That's right, baby podcasters. Let's talk about your flatty, because it's pretty
my flatty. Yeah, that flat fender. So when I first got hired at 4-Wheel and Off-Road way back in antiquity, the guy who hired me, Cole Quinnell, I'll back up. John Kappa was the tech editor, and so John had this 48, I think, CJ2A, and shortly after I was hired, Cole already had a flat fender that he bought. It was basically just a tub. And so John, Cole, and I assembled at Cole's house for 2 weeks, and we built Cole's flat fender from nothing, literally just a body and maybe an engine and a couple other parts here and there, into a running, driving flat fender. It was called the 14-day flatty. It's you might be able to find it out there. Cole still owns that, but so Cole had a flatty. John had a flatty. I needed a flatty. And so I started looking for one. And I found this one on the recycler.com, going back that far. It's $400. It said it was 2-wheel drive, and I had no idea. Like, I remember going out the door to go see it with John after work ended, with John's trailer, and we were in like a Dakota quad cab that we were testing for the magazine, running up to the high desert. I think we got there around 11 p.m. or so. And Rick's last words to me, "Oh, it's a DJ. Make sure it doesn't have doors." And so we roll in, and this thing's sitting in the guy's side yard. Mwah, mwah, it has the doors. Like, whatever. It was $400. It had a 305 V8 in it. And I didn't know much of anything. It had all these weird bits all over it. Like, it had a Continental kit in the back, and it had a Jeepster grill insert on the front. And it had a
I didn't know that.
It had some weird stuff on it. It had and so whatever, forked over the money, bought it. Well, I won't bore you with the whole build-up story, but I pulled the body off the frame, and I boxed the frame, and Cole, John, and I were going to have a competition, the flat fender off, or whatever we were going to call it. And it was going to be, okay, we're going to test the crawl ratio, how slow you can go on the lake bed, and this and that and that. And so I was trying to one up them in every aspect. And so they had 538s. And so I went with Ford 9-inches front and rear with 587 gears, so I could go slower than them. And, John had a 350 Target motor, and Cole had the 350 roller cam motor. And so Cole and David Freiberger had disassembled this 1970 Cadillac, or Cole and someone had. And he's like, "Go grab that Caddy 500." So I did. And so the first engine I started wedging in there was a Caddy 500. And I actually mated a manual tranny to it, and just it became readily apparent that that thing was not the motor for it. And so then I changed gears massively and went with the Northstar V8. I'm like, I'm not going to use this old iron Cadillac V8. I'm going to get a modern Cadillac V8. Got a 4.9 Northstar, and realized that too was a logistical nightmare. Around that time, I started getting friendly with Colby Anger, who owns Turnkey Engine Supply. And he, at the time, was selling all the Northstars he could sell. And he needed one, knew I had that. And he's like, "Hey, I need a Northstar for a customer. I will trade you your choice, an LS1 with harness or an LX5 short star." And so, me trying to be different, I picked the short star. So that is an LX5 3.5 liter dual overhead cam V6, 260 pounds, dressed in wet, and makes about 280 horse, 280 foot-pounds, somewhere around there. So it's a great little motor. It's super lightweight. The only downside is it's got a log style oil pan, and if I did not severely limit the up travel on the front axle, the axle would wipe out the the oil system on it. But
I don't imagine you can just get an aftermarket pan for that, right?
No, it's all part of the oiling system and structural. And so I don't know. I've not done it, but it's on 35s. It's got an SM420. I originally built it with the Spicer 18 and a Warn Overdrive. The Warn Overdrive is what started the whole thing. I was in the junkyard and I found an International Scout with a Spicer 18 with the Warn on it. And so I bought that, and then the joke was I needed a Jeep to put it in. So yeah, I built that in my garage, and it's got Willwood master cylinders. It's, like I said, Ford 9-inches front and rear. When I was doing a lot of hardcore rock crawling in Johnson Valley every weekend, I took out the Spicer 18 and I put in a Dana 300. So now it's sporting a Dana 300. So no overdrive. And then I went with a true high 9 rear when I did the Dana 300 swap. And that necessitated dropping the gear ratio down to 538s because they don't make a 587 for the true high 9. And it's got a Power Master welder under the hood. I forget who private labeled that for them, Moby Arc or someone like that. But it's a really cool welder. They don't make those anymore. And it's just been sitting because the brakes need to be redone. I used non-brake fluid resistant hose to run from the master cylinders around the roll bar right there. because there's no room under the hood. And so I used just regular fuel line, thinking, oh, I'll swap that later. And well, 15 years later, they started leaking all over the place. So I've got to redo the brakes. I need to redo the fuel system. And then other than that, the thing's ready to go.
Okay.
Well, but I did come to find out that is a rare 1953 DJ prototype. They didn't start making DJs until 53. There it is with the grill insert on it. It's sporting the Jeepster grill insert there. So they made 3 of those. And while I was on JP, a former Willys person sent me a photo of this Jeep. It was actually a newspaper clipping, but it was that Jeep along with its 2 sister Jeeps they had built in Hazleton Park in I think it was Pennsylvania or Michigan or somewhere. I forget where Hazleton Park was, but I thought that was interesting. So yeah, it's on a CJ3B blank chassis is what the VIN is, and yeah, that's my little flatty.
There you go. All right. Well, believe it or not, we have actually been yapping for 56 minutes so far. So
why don't you do one more of yours, and then maybe we'll pick up the stable. You can pick that up on a later day.
I think that's a really good plan. Let me see here.
We'll make this a recurring because we have plenty more to get through.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good call. All right. Well, I am going to start, or this will be my one that I will share. Some of you guys might recognize this one, but it is my 1997 TJ buggy. So this is the very first shot of it right after I built it. One of the very first shots, and it wasn't even really done yet. But so this started life as a very, very, very crashed 97 Wrangler. And to the point that even the frame wasn't usable. I had to get into the frame for it. But I had bought it. Actually, Chris Durham found it at a salvage auction for me. But it had a 5-speed, a 4-liter, 231, and all stock, stone stock. But it had been crashed hard. And so I had hooked up at the time with so this is during my television show days. So I hosted a television show back in the day called Superlift Offroad Adventures, and this was one of the last project vehicles that was built on that show. But this one, so the frame is factory TJ, and then this kit, this whole, all the structural tube work and everything was all from the guy that used to own Advanced Frameworks, and then it became Prindle Manufacturing. And he had developed this really, really, really cool chassis kit. And at the time, this is 2006, at the time, you could get the complete cage kit, pre-bent, pre-coped, ready to go, with the skins, the floor pan, the dash, and all the tube work for like $3,500, which is an absolute steal. And what I loved about it is I loved the lines of it. It was very reminiscent of a Bruiser chassis, which Clifton Slay developed. Not quite the same, kind of a baby version, but it was this was Project Budget Buggy. And so I initially built it. That's Sam there in the passenger seat. I think he rode with me that year. But this was initially built, believe it or not, with a Dana 30 front, the factory Dana 30 with the Warren hub conversion, and then a Ford 8.8 rear. And I swung 37s off of those things for a long time. Now, don't get me wrong, I broke a lot of locking hubs, but it was very lightweight, very cool, very capable. I started with coil springs, later added coilovers to it, and then gradually went with bigger axles Well, I actually showed up to one UA with a Dana 60 front and the Ford 8.8 rear, believe it or not.
Yeah.
That was a bit unusual, but it's been a very cool car. I'm actually, you guys can't see it. I'm actually looking at it. It's just over the camera's shoulder, but it's needed some love for a long time. The motor is really tired. The suspension is really tired, and I really want to bring it back. The problem is, what do I do? Do I have an LS. I have an all aluminum 5.3 LS that I could put in it. Do I just put a fresh and 4-liter in it, keep it really light? Although I guess the aluminum, the 5.3 and the 4-liter are about the same. But
comment. Let us know what Trent should do.
Yeah, let us know what should I do.
The Pigeon 5.3. You built that for a story for me when I was at 4 Wheel and Off Road, and you.
I did. It's got a Pacific Fabrication. Or Tilden Motorsports cam in it. That's very similar to the way it sits today. Like I said, it's 60s front and back. It's got plenty of axle. It has an AX15, which is going to be a bit marginal behind a 5.3.
But what's the ratio in the T case?
Well, it's a 4-speed transfer case, so it's an Atlas 4-speed. So
that takes a lot of the burden off the.
Yeah, 2.1, 272, and then 544. This was actually the last time it went on a UA. This was in 2017. And
that's the last trail day. You thought you blew up the rear axle, but
yeah, no. Well, this particular
what the
day,
problem was.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll get into that.
Oh, that's when your motor mount came apart. I think.
I ripped the factory motor mount bracket off of the motor, and so had to fix that. And then the very last trail day, I thought I blew up the rear end, and it turned out what had happened is that all the ring gear bolts had backed out.
Yeah. So the day after, Trent just popped the diff cover, fished them out, put them back in, or at least the ones we could get back in, and drove back to Phoenix.
Drove it 400 miles home. So yeah, that's the buggy. I'm not sure what to do with it. I'd love to know what you guys have to say about that. But all right, well, I think we're right at an hour at this point. So let's wrap this up, Christian. Anything else you want to say as parting words?
Unreal Adventures coming end of September. We are going to be really doing everything we can to make the videos awesome. Please help us spread the word, like and subscribe, and all that good YouTube, online, whatever stuff people have to say to keep their channels going. We really do honestly appreciate it. And
indeed,
and we appreciate the feedback we've gotten has been really positive. And yeah, it's a good feeling. I'm very appreciative that everyone is being so kind as we undertake this endeavor here.
Yeah, we've embarked on a journey, and we love the fact that so many have already supported us by, like I said, liking, subscribing, watching the videos. There's a ton more to come, guys. They're going to be way better than this. We're going to gradually get better at this. But
it got dark around me. I'm like a floating head.
I know. That's kind of one of the other reasons I kind of wanted to wrap it up. So yeah, you look like a just
good thing I wore a black shirt to this.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, tons more to come, and tune in next time. Good night.